Hello, and welcome to Storytime Pitches. I'm Kurt,
And I am Josh.
and welcome back to another episode.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit, but we got some fresh ideas for you.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into it too much, I want to give a shout out to Anna, or her name's Potato, I guess. She commented on one of our Facebook posts and was like, "I'm so mad right now." And then she ended up writing like 4 pages of stuff to kind of revise our Awakening podcast we did last time. And she sent it to us, and it was crazy because she audio recorded it, everything, and she had some pretty good ideas. So I think we might have to get back to that one eventually and see if she wants to join us on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I did read through the messages. I didn't comment, but I did read through, and I was actually really impressed, and actually kind of inspired that somebody heard one of our podcasts and actually took the time to actually go through, and she definitely did go into a lot of depth, and big shout out to her, for just all that. And I think it was pretty just awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some rumors floating around that maybe we might hop on theirs at one point, but that's neither here or there. But anyway, we really like all that interaction. So if anybody else ever has any ideas, feel free to comment on Facebook or Instagram or anything, or send us messages directly. We use the app Anchor, and usually when we post everything, that's kind of where we send everybody to, and it's kind of like a one-stop thing, and then you can choose whether you listen to it on Spotify or Google or whatever. And that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. Plus, Anchor has this thing where you can just record an audio message and send it to us real quick, and it's pretty cool because the way we edit everything, we can literally just take whatever you said and just throw it in the middle of a podcast, so you guys could actually be on here with us, and by just sending us a message. So that's something cool that I think I look forward to in the future, especially when we get more listeners, more shows under our belt.
Right. And and that's, I think, was the whole premise to our podcast is actually, it's creativity, and the more interaction we get, I think the better, not only just for us, but the community. It's always great to be creative, and I hope that we inspire people to be more creative, and hopefully hearing some of our podcasts and the ideas does inspire others.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of just do the basics of the important parts of the story. And I mean, that's what I thought was kind of cool when Anna wrote us, is her revised version added a lot of character depth and little things. And it's yeah, we knew that we wanted it in that direction, but doing a podcast, we're already talking, and these things end up being an hour long, which I know that can be pretty long for a podcast. But when you get, like you said, when you get those juices flowing, it's hard to stop, and yeah, being a creative mind already, both of us are, when someone else gives us a little idea, it's oh man, we can run with this. Okay, let's go. Then it just kind of goes from there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And and just reading through it, I mean, I don't think that, aside from you and me, I don't think I've ever heard a third party's perspective. And just hearing that, it does inspire me to do more.
Yeah.
I mean, and
yeah.
it's I do hope that later on we go back to that, hopefully with her, and go through that all again. It would be cool to have some fresh ideas thrown at me, and I think vice versa with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we don't want to spoil anything that she wrote, because looking forward to having her on here eventually, and sharing her own views and ideas on everything that we wrote.
Definitely. Well, speaking of fresh ideas,
All right.
I got one for you.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, I know in our last podcast we kind of touched on Stranger Things, and obviously reading through some of her ideas kind of got me on that wavelength of the 80s, and creepy vibes, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're 80s kids, so we understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I was late 80s kid, but you know, um,
The nostalgia's still there.
that's right. I'm trying to keep it alive myself. I collect VHS, if anybody doesn't know that about me. So, this idea I came up with, like, I think, like, the one thing I liked about Stranger Things is, like, kids riding around on bicycles. I mean, I'm sure you had kind of your own experiences when you were a kid, when you were riding around, like you'd see creepy stuff like all over your neighborhood, and you'd come back to like your friend's house and you'd be like, yo man, like, I was on the other side of my neighborhood there and I like seen some creepy things going on. And like,
Yeah, we took a
and
shortcut through the field.
yeah, and it kind of starts its own like little rumor, kind of thing. And then like if somebody else had seen the same thing, like here you guys are like, kids, and you're just like, what in the hell is going on? And like, and I think that's like how a lot of, like creepy stories happened, especially like for neighborhoods. But
I can get on board with that.
yeah, I think a lot of people kind of have that experience. There's always that like creepy tunnel that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
So
Yes, if there's any kids listening, just get off your video games and go hang out in tunnels.
yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Please don't do that. I don't want to.
But, it's cool to explore and get off your couch once in a while and realize that there's a world out there, That's
There,
more what I'm saying.
believe it or not, there is a large world out there. Go make your own adventures. Just be safe about it.
Yes.
So,
Use your video game knowledge out there. Your survival skills.
so my idea, like, it stems from that. So I'm thinking, like, there's a group of kids riding around on their bicycles, right? And like, you got to put yourself back in the '80s. Like the cool cars. I think a lot of people back then, yeah, like just that vibe kind of thing. So here it is, like dark, it's starting to get like, kind of dark outside. Kids are starting to get called back home for dinner, that kind of thing. But you always have like that one group, and like, let's just say this group is pretty tight. Like, they're hanging out by like, the electrical box with all their bicycles, and, and the one kid's like, hey, like, did you guys, did you guys happen to check out like that new area that was getting built? um Down at like the end of the street there, and this is like a new development.
So like houses.
Yeah, like it's brand new. It's like a newer development. Like not a lot of people have started to move in yet.
Okay.
So the kids go down there, they ride down there and stuff, and like there's like a white van sitting in like a cul-de-sac, and they're kind of just checking it out. And like these houses are different looking because it's a new contractor. So what their houses kind of look like in comparison to these houses, they're like a little bit more modern, a little newer. So these kids are a little bit and like, whoa, like, these houses are kind of expensive. So my idea is like these kids, they roll up, they see this house, and like they see this white van, and like, they're kind of like seeing it. And then there's like a tube going from the van to like the side of the house, right? And so they're like, okay, that's kind of weird. So then they're like sitting there on their bicycles, and then they start seeing like all these like flashes of like this like purple and white light, like flashing in the house and stuff. And like this is like really, really weird, like glow kind of like starts to happen, right?
Okay.
And so these kids are like just sitting there like, oh my God, like what the hell is going on? And they're kind of all like looking at each other like, whoa, this is kind of weird. And so,
But they can't stop staring at it. Like when none of the kids are like, let's get out of here. They're just like completely entranced.
right, like they're just chewing their bubble gum and like looking at this house like, are you guys really seeing like what I'm seeing? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So well, I mean, I'm kind of like going really in depth here, but So the premise of the story is, you know, basically the kids, they end up seeing like this weird thing happen at this house, and you know, they go home and they're all like sitting on their like walkie talkies maybe, or you know, like calling each other, and they're just like, dude, like, you know, that was that real, like, you know, like, damn, like if we had like a throwaway camera, like we could have taken a picture. And you know, so these kids get
Yeah,
really
so their
curious.
imaginations are just running wild. They're like, well, maybe there was a guy in there. Maybe he was cleaning the carpets and got like electrocuted or something.
Right, right. So I mean, like, you know, you really base it on like that, like, oh my god, like what is this, like we have to know more. So you know, basically
So it's a
like the next
mystery.
night, yeah, basically the next night they all go out again, and you know, like they're all trying to get out of their house, and their mom's yelling at them like, no, you guys can't go out right now, like, you know, it's too late. And same thing. And so that's kind of like where we start the movie. And I guess I'll go into like more of the detail of like the actual like what the movie or show would be about. um but basically, these kids find out that, you know, their suspicions are, you know, like wrong. Like it's not a vacuum cleaner. It's not a, you know, anything that's like normal. It's these are like FBI agents that are inside these new houses, right? And so as the nights that they go out, they start seeing this van, you know, moving to different housing in that cul-de-sac, right?
Okay.
And it's the same thing. Like these lights are going off, and then like, you know, let's just say like one of the agents catches whiff, like, you know, that there's kids out there watching. So then they start building up security around this like housing development, and they're kind of like, you know, starting to scare these kids away, and or at least trying to. But these kids are smart, and you know, they're
Yeah,
kind
just
of
put up
like,
fences and dumb crap like that.
yeah, you know. So basically, we find out that um through a little digging of the kids, and what they can gather is that these agents are there, and like this is kind of like a phenomenon with ghosts. And I think like end game here, um this is a ghost relocation operation. And so by that I mean, like, when you think about like older movies with ghosts, you know, like the poltergeist stuff like that, it's because there's too many ghosts in one area, right?
Yeah.
So they start to get like all these ghosts are clumped up together, and they start combating each other, which starts to, you know, move things. It scares people. The ghosts are angry at that point. So the government actually has figured out that when you have too many ghosts in one area, that if you start to remove the ghosts and put them into their own area, everything kind of goes back to stagnant. Like the ghosts are still there, and there's a light possibility that the ghosts may like pop up, but it's very rare if there's not like a clump of them all in one area, right? Not too close to each other.
Yeah, unless it's the murder house.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So, but yeah, that's the premise of the show. And like I think if you based it on like this like kind of like 80s vibe, you know, in how like the kids see everything going on. But what would be different is, you know, like we could possibly even go into like the backstories of the ghosts that are getting relocated. Like, does that make sense?
I think that would actually be really smart. Yeah, I think that could add a lot of depth to the story. Okay. All right. I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I mean, like you can't, like, okay, well, we have all these ghosts from like the our entire past, okay, and like, you know, we only hear about ghost story every once in a while. And you know, we can go into depth about like what kind of ghosts there actually are. I mean, like there's people that die every day, but like there's people that die in horrific ways, and maybe that starts a ghost off being a little bit more like edgy when they actually do become a ghost.
Yeah.
So the ghosts that actually die of like a crazy way end up becoming like what we consider like these violent ghosts.
Okay.
You know, because they're seeking revenge on what happened. So, I mean, we can kind of do something like that, but like, what if, you know, we have like a newer kid that dies in the same house as another ghost that died of like a horrific way, and now they're stuck in the house together.
That would
Like,
make sense.
that obviously causes, yeah, like you have like a younger kid, you know, that's like a normal ghost, and then you have this other crazy ghost from like the 1800s that got axe murdered in this house, and like now this ghost is having to like basically live in this house with that crazy ghost. So like, you know, I think it would be kind of funny like to set up like a FBI hotline for ghosts.
Okay. All right.
But
Well,
yeah.
so I kind of have some ideas of where and how you could do this and why. So I like the idea of like the kids kind of stumbling upon this mystery, seeing the lights, and maybe it kind of progresses, you know. So at first they just see like the van with the hose going inside and, you know, think it's steam cleaning the carpets kind of thing. And then the lights go off. The next time they actually see like men in like hazmat suits, like carrying equipment inside a house. You know, the next time they come out there, they actually beefed up their security, so they actually have somebody sitting outside that kind of, hey, get away from here, like chases the kids off. You know, and then maybe after that they put up the
Right.
full fencing around like this new housing area with like the barbed wire on top of it. But you know, these kids are resilient, and of course, it, you know, setting it in the time period that you chose, I think that makes it kind of cool because the internet wasn't a thing. It's not like you could just hop on there like, hey, what's going on? Of course, like when you start talking about like ghosts and things like that, parents aren't going to believe you, cops aren't going to believe you. So these kids got to unravel this mystery on their own. So I think it's kind of cool, the whole thought process of how the ghosts are relocated and why. But I think that's something that, you know, we should save a little later for the movie. So let's say that they wait for all these people to leave, you know, and this is maybe 30 minutes into the movie or so, 40 minutes maybe, like they all leave and the kids end up like cutting the fence and like breaking into this place. And this is when they go inside and see all the equipment. And they're just like, well, this is nothing we've ever seen before. And, you know, as this happens, like one of the guys comes back because he like left something in the house that he forgot or something stupid. Like, and then they're freaking out and like running and trying to hide in closets and stuff. And then as this is happening, the guy like comes in the house, he like, you know, grabs his tool bag or whatever, and then kind of, you know, was wondering why like the lights were on or whatever. It's like shakes it off, like turns off the light and leaves. And like as this is all happening, like one of the kids is like hiding in a closet and he like feels like something breathing down his neck and he like turns to the side and it's one of the ghosts that they relocated. But of course, at this point in the movie, you wouldn't realize that that's what's happening. You're just thinking something weird is here. And, you know, like this is a violent ghost who's pissed off now because, you know, they took him out of his home and moved him over here. And, you know, basically these kids like end up running and trying to get out of this house, freaking out and stuff. And then one of the kids like trips down the stairs and falls and like breaks his neck and dies.
Oh my god.
So I mean, just roll with me on this. But
All right.
like as this story progresses, these kids are now like confronting these guys. So the next time they catch them at a different house somewhere in this little town or whatever, they go confront them. Like, what did you bring in that house? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, our friend died because of this. And, you know, yeah, it's really dramatic and stuff, but like, you got to have something crazy happen to like rile everybody up. And of course, the town doesn't believe them. None of the kids or none of the parents believe them and anything. So they got to take it in their own hands and start confronting these guys. And these guys are, you know, calling their superiors and they're like, hey, we need to get out of this town. Like, we're about to get found out. But as this is going on, this kid that died ends up like following them. So like a poltergeist would actually attach itself to someone and it would almost be like that. So this ghost ends up following these kids like the kid that died, and somehow breaks through, um, because he died where that technology was like active, like all that equipment was active. He can actually like
Hmm.
break through the spectrum and like talk to these kids and tell them like, hey, like this is what's going on. Like they're moving ghosts from other houses to new houses, and they're doing it for these reasons. But here's the conflict. The conflict is that not all these ghosts are bad. So, there might be a ghost of an old man who died in a house and wanted to live there with his like still living wife, just to be there with her. And they relocated him to this complete other house on the other side of America, and he has no way of getting back because they put up, like almost uh, like frequency borders where they can't get out of the house. And then there's other ghosts that are stuck in
Oh.
like residual hauntings where they live the same thing over and over, and they've broken them out of that loop and moved them somewhere else, and they became violent because of it, and now they're haunting the people that live in these houses. So you add like a whole nother layer of conflict to the story. It's not just this tiny little thing in this tiny little town. Like it's something that's happening like all over the nation, at least as far as we know. And these kids are the only people that have ever figured out what's happening. And now they got to try to figure out a way to basically get them to like either back off or do more research on who they're relocating or something. So, I mean, they could eventually figure out that this ghost kid is problematic and trying to capture him and relocate him like literally in like in the depths of the ocean or something, like use the frequency inhibitors to like put around like cement or something and drop into the bottom of the ocean. Like maybe it's a plan like that because, like what they're doing is helping to a point, but it's also messing with the entire ecosystem of, you know, basically everything, like all the realms, living, purgatory, heaven, hell, whatever. Like, we don't have to get that far into it, but basically, we can just say something kind of a blanket statement that it's messing up the whole ecosystem of how life and death works. And like, there's a
Mm.
reason that some people go to heaven. There's a reason some people go to hell. There's a reason some people stay here. And then people sometimes ghosts have their own choice if they want to stay here or not. And by them moving some of these people, they're taking that away from them. But yes, I think that we should definitely get
Oh,
into the
okay.
part of where there's like serial killer ghosts and people that were murdered and all these crazy things. I think that would be really awesome if they're trying to expose this government operation at the same time that this is all happening. Like maybe this kid that died in this house that can, basically reverse the spectrum and appear to his friends since they were in the house when it happened. Um, Things are starting to attach themselves to these kids. They're
Dude,
like
that's actually
magnets for evil forces now.
that's actually like a really awesome idea. I mean, like, I totally didn't even think of that. Like, okay,
Give me an inch and I'll
you
give you
have a
10 miles.
you have like yeah, like you have like one of their friends die in this house, and because of that, like, I mean, like maybe let's just say like this kid, like one of the kids steals like one of the pieces of technology, somehow or
Well, I'm thinking like the kid's like running and like trips over the power cord and like turns the machine on or something, and then they're freaking out even more, and then they start running, fall, one of them falls downstairs and breaks his neck like while this machine's running, and he dies at the same time that it's trying to relocate a ghost basically.
dang. Yeah, like, and I also do like the fact that like, I didn't think kind of like that far into like what the real problem of moving a ghost is, but like say you have, yeah, like let's say like you have an old man and he wanted to, let's say like, like everybody has that thing where like, nobody wants anybody to die,
Yeah.
but this old man didn't want to die before his wife did, and so he
Yeah,
actually
or maybe
was.
both of them died and they both live in this house and they separated them by doing this.
Oh, that too, yeah. Yeah, like I mean, those are all like really good reasons to like, maybe their friend that died that comes back to them and, talks to them through like the pat or like through like being a ghost, actually like is the one person that can actually like like maybe later on if this became like a series or kind of something like that, like this is the kid that actually, you know, is kind of like the me like intermittent person between these ghosts. Like he goes into
Yeah, he's like the
these, yeah,
bridge.
like he goes into these like houses and figures out what's the problem, like, and then like say later on these kids actually like finally get it through the heads of like the FBI, like, look, like you need him to, or you guys need him to help you determine like what ghosts stay and what ghosts like go.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Because if
And
there's like a whole neighborhood that the supernatural activity is really high and it's messing up all the radio antennas and televisions and like just everything in general, people's cars are just blowing up for no, or not blowing up, but gaskets are blowing in cars for no reason and stuff like that. That would be a sign that there might be high supernatural activity in that area. And the FBI, just being a brute force, would just go in there and just do their scans real quick and be like, oh, there's seven of them here. Let's just take, every other house, take one of them. And then that's when they're separating, like elderly people that died in the house together and stuff. And yeah, they're not haunting, the younger people that are living there or anything. It's just, they're just picking and choosing and not really, assessing the situation. Cause there could be literally, like I said, like a serial killer that lives in the house next door that they didn't get. That's absolutely terrorizing these people. And nobody knows because nobody believes them. Nobody reports it. And like I think that'd be kind of interesting. And what would actually be really cool is like you keep saying like if this was a series, but I think it would be cool if it was like a movie series, because the second movie could be kind of like It Chapter 2, where like they're like,
mhm.
spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, they're older now, but you have like one or two kids that are like a lot older and they have the means and the money and everything to travel, the nation or the world and assess these situations. So, maybe they get the FBI to back off or at least be a little bit more selective of who they're choosing by the end of the first movie. And this one, it's more like the X-Files type thing, where or like Supernatural, like the show, like they're this guy's like choosing to go out and spend his life putting ghosts in the right situation and also helping with like the bad hauntings. And this kid that died in the 80s like never grew up, so he's still a kid assisting him in doing this. And I think that could be a kind of fun dynamic with like the older guy and then the younger kid like always making fun of his best friend for growing old and stuff like that, like just a buddy dynamic as they're going around, trying to solve these crazy
And
things. And plus technology would be so much more advanced like nowadays that it could actually add a lot of depth to a sequel too.
I mean, like, okay, like I'll throw this at you. All right, since you just once again you kind of just got my wheels turning here. Okay,
That's my job.
all right, so all right, like I think if we did it as like a movie, I think obviously the first movie would be, something like really really like pretty creepy in a way. And I
Oh
mean
yeah.
like it deals with a lot of heavy stuff. I mean, and especially if we just focused on like the one ghost, like like they figure out from his friend that the ghost that they just put into this house should not be there with this other ghost. Like this other ghost is a serial killer and he's crazy as shit. But there's like, let's say it's that old man that got taken away from his wife, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he figures this all out and tells the kids like, look, the older guy that's here, he shouldn't be here. Like the only way that he's going to go to heaven and to finish off like his deeds on
His
earth
unfinished business.
is to, yeah, like his unfinished business is to be with his wife and then they can go to heaven together. That kind of thing, or something along that
Oh,
line.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Like he's waiting for his wife to pass so they can go together.
right.
I like that. Yeah, and I think that'd be kind of cool if we didn't even explore that until towards the end of the movie when we're wrapping everything up. Like it's just a freaking mystery horror movie up until that point. And at first they think this ghost is haunting them or whatever, and it's just this old man trying to talk to them. But there is another one that's also there that's attached itself to them because of that. So like while they're sleeping in their own home at night, all of a sudden it starts messing with them and stuff.
Right. And so like okay, like so now we get into like the second part. Okay, like they like let's do like a Stand By Me kind of like ending to it. Like this is what I kind of see is like, you kind of like have them all walking down the street after everything's done, and like everybody starts to vanish in their own way, and you kind of tell a backstory on like they went off to like lawyer school, and then like the main character, okay, and like what we would focus on is like the main character and then like the ghost at very last. And let's just say like the main character, because he stole some of the machines that actually, like, I mean, he's smart, so he stole the machines that actually like that the government used. But let's just say like later on, he actually, like, the government came back to him and actually wanted him to be like the head of this ghost relocation.
Okay.
And so this is the reason why he has the ability to go all around the world and to deal with these things, is because his friend, who is a little kid still, like you work together, like he works together with his friend. So like it's crazy because he would have to have some way of like keeping his friend with him, and then being able, like, he would have to, every single time he goes to like a different house, he would actually have to like relocate his friend to that house so that he can figure out that mystery. So it's kind of like he uses his friend as like the hack to get into these houses to figure out the problem.
That'd be kind of cool. It'd be kind of cool if if somehow, some way, they ended up waking up the ghost from the first movie that was like full rage monster ghost now coming after him. I mean, it was already pissed off in the first place, but now it's been, 40 years and this thing's furious, and then like this guy basically like telling the government this, and they're like, nah, like we can't help you. So he has to kind of go out on his own and try to recruit his old friends and tell them like, hey, like he's back, like he's coming for you, like you have to get out of here, or you have to help me or something. And of course they're all like, no, dude, like I can't do that. Like I'm a lawyer now. Like I have the biggest case in my life. Like in a few days, like, I think that would be an interesting dynamic is it be him trying to like basically save his friends at that point
Oh,
because of what they did in the 80s.
that's crazy.
But I mean, back to the original movie, I think it's a great idea. I think, I know we do a supernatural stuff a lot on this podcast, but that's kind of our thing. Is we love horror movies and things that make you think, and mysteries, of course. And I think that's what's cool about this is it's a borderline mystery, because if you don't over explain it, you kind of like leave a lot to the viewer to get their gears turning. Like, what is really happening here? Like, this is crazy. And then, yeah, we explain it at the end, but I think, like I said, don't over explain everything, but give them the gist of it. Like, let them know that, they're moving these people around without, giving them a choice. And
Hmm.
these kids are basically just either trying to put it to a stop, or they're trying to, get them to pay attention to what they're actually moving.
Yeah, it's like dealing with the situation.
Yeah, that's like their B story going on that they don't really talk about because they're kind of, young kids, and that's not the first thing that crosses their mind. They're more just like, let's get this freaking ghost to stop haunting us, because like, yeah, like the energy from the ghost relocation machine, transferred onto them. So now this thing can like latch to them and go to their houses or wherever they try to hide.
Mm. Oh, so actually, like maybe like the reason why these FBI agents wear these like suits is because like if they have to be in the house when they're relocating the ghost, maybe like these suits prevent them from getting that attachment, and so all these kids were in there as this thing was happening,
Uh,
and it basically like opened up a portal to them so that the other side could see them. So like maybe just by them all being in that house, like open up like the, like the location by ghosts. So like
like a magnet.
yeah. So like they're all getting attracted like to them, and yeah, like I mean that would be kind of interesting. Like actually like the oh man, there's so many good ideas with that.
Oh yeah, like I think just like as a surface pitch, I think that's definitely enough to like build upon, a good 2 hour movie of just like I said, like a mystery, but make it also terrifying, but with a lighthearted end like that, especially with that 80s vibe and the kids and all that, you kind of want it to be it hit all those like notes, and then at the end have it be a little bit more uplifting. And
Yeah, it's
I think your idea for the end is pretty good, like even if you just do like a text across the bottom or something
yeah, it's good.
that like explains where they're going now, and then yeah, maybe like I don't know if this movie would need an after credit scene, but yeah, the second movie, I could imagine it being a lot more upbeat, a lot more fast paced, more like action style,
Mhm.
because I mean, we're talking like this dude's probably in his like 40s now, upper 40s, and he's worked for the government for many, many years doing field work and everything else. And who's to say that that's the only thing that he ever did? Like he could have definitely been put overseas to do, just normal soldier things. And, so now he's a lot more smarter. Like I hate to use the word gritty, but I guess like gritty, so when he's going in there and he ends up deciding who needs to be moved out of this area, like which ghost needs to be moved out, sometimes he's gonna have to confront some pretty crazy ones, and I think that would be kind of cool to get into like a more action side of it there,
Mm.
but also have that like buddy chemistry with the younger kid that follows him, because if they have the energy attached to him, then this kid could still follow him around or any of his friends too.
Right.
So I mean, like if he gets in trouble, he could literally just warp out of there and pop in over to, you know, like older Tommy's house or whatever their names are, and just like, hey, like Billy's in trouble. I don't know where you go, Billy and Tommy all the time. I guess
Mm.
Double Dragon, but but yeah, just stuff like that would be kind of like fun. I think if you made it like it almost has to have a humor in it, even if it's like a Ghostbusters type humor where it's like you only get it if you get it.
Well, yeah, and
And if you don't, then it's just
it'd
scary.
be like kind of like almost like tongue in cheek. You would have to have like a tongue in cheek to it, and like I read a lot of comics and stuff like that, and the one comic I'd read, like that they talked about like a babysitter that was actually a ghost. Like, and in the comic, it's awesome because she's like one of the best characters. In Saga, the comic book's called Saga, but the baby actually has a like a ghost like babysitter, and her name's Isabel. And if you haven't read Saga, like definitely go read Saga. And I've always thought that was kind of like a cool idea, is that you don't generally think of ghosts as being like main characters and stuff like that, but like in the show you could literally have this older guy. He's a little bit more gritty. He goes to like, let's just say like New Hampshire somewhere because he got called out there, like and in his head, like he kind of like talks to his friend because his friend's around him. And but like when he actually like puts his friend into this house, like when he actually like relocates him into the house, the kid actually becomes like like where we can see him, and so he's in the house like alone, walking around, and just kind of like he's talking to himself, but
Yeah, like
he's
just as scared.
yeah, yeah, he's like a little kid, but he goes in there and like and he's just like trying to like he's communicating with him and telling him like, look, like, all right, this is what's going on, like, you know, like I'm going upstairs and like, oh my god, like, you know, like this just happened, like I mean, like I've dealt with this before, but like, man, I'm like really really scared right now and stuff, and you know, he has this kind of have to like he has to like communicate with him like talking to a kid, like, look at you've done this before, like, you know, you've done it 100 times, like I don't know why you always get scared at this very
Yeah,
moment.
I could see him like sitting in his van with his little like Spectre readout and his like enhanced microphone that he can like hear all the spectral voices and stuff, like communicating with him like that.
Yeah.
And just him with the headphones on, like Brian, you've done this so many times, like or whatever his name
Nah, it
is.
could be like the ongoing thing. It's like he always gets scared like right before he meets the damn ghost, and he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna walk out. Like I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it. Like he's like, you've done it 1,000 times. We've literally done 1,000 things. Like why are you fucking scared right now? Like just walk in there and talk to him. Like and he's like, oh, yeah, dude. Like it's really scary. Like you know, like there's things like turned up on the walls and like I can feel his energy and stuff. And he's like, dude, just walk in there, like, and then he like walks in there, and it's just like a lady standing there, and it's just like a normal ass lady from like
It's like, oh, thank God.
yeah, like she just died like 2 weeks ago, and she's in there like freaking the fuck out because she senses him in the house.
Yeah, yeah. See, I think that'd be kind of cool too, like especially with the first movie, if like if you made it like the Frighteners, where like the ghosts can actually hurt each other because they're on the same plane.
Oh,
Like that can make it really crazy because even though this kid's trying to help them, like he's still learning how to be a ghost at the same time, and like that's when we can realize, like when this kid first talks to him, like, hey, it's not, there's more than one ghost in that house,
oh, so like maybe the
and then,
lady that just died didn't even know about the other ghost that was actually in the
well, I'm
house.
saying like the first movie,
Oh,
like um when there's like the serial killer ghost with like the old man ghost, they just think it's one ghost, and when this kid finally breaks through them, I can imagine it kind of like like Poltergeist, like you hear like the voices every now and then, like he's just slowly trying to break through the plane and actually communicate with them, and then once he does, that's when he tells them like there's more than one ghost in that house,
mm,
or haunting you, I should say, because it's following them now. Like there's more than one ghost following you.
that would be crazy.
Yeah. I could imagine that being like a really scary situation. Like they're sitting there and he finally breaks through and they finally realize like, oh, this is our friend that's talking to us, and that him just being like it's not just one spirit and then like just like sucking him back in, and then like just you sitting there like, what? Like there's more that are following them right now.
Uh, yeah, that would be.
Even though we find out later that it's like one's a good, one's a bad, but I think, yeah, if you just like plant that seed and make it sound really scary at first, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and like, and you know, like kind of like throw a little bit more into the story here, like, you know, like let's say like the piece of technology. I mean, because you got to think like once you get to the second movie, he's an older man, but let's say like the house that he lived in when he was in the 80s, okay, like his parents are now passed away, and they both reside in the house that that he received in the will, but the technology that he first stole is still in that house, and maybe like that's like, you know, because down the street is where that original ghost is, and like this is kind of like the overlooming ghost that like is really haunting them and like really causing a lot of problems. Maybe that ghost finds a way to get to that technology and getting and like actually breaks out of that, you know, like field that he's in, like through the tech that's in his house.
You know what else would be kind of cool is like if they use new school technology to do this ghost relocation and everything in the second movie, and then when the original ghost comes after them, he's like, oh yeah, no problem, we'll just use all this new technology, but then he has to go, like he realizes that since he's an older ghost, that he has to continue using the old technology. So he has to go, like, let's say there's like a key part that makes that machine work, and that's what he stole. he has to like go venture back to his old neighborhood, to the old house that he grew up in, and basically dig that thing out, because he has to use old technology to stop an old ghost.
And that ghost could be messing with his parents too. Like maybe his parents are like
Yeah.
perfectly fine and happy until like this thing finally gets its way over there, and it's like maybe like that ghost is now like holding his parents, like kind of like hostage in a way.
That would make sense. Like because they can't leave the house, but since he was in that house when they broke the machine, like he can just transfer anywhere he wants as long as it's near one of these like original kids.
Mm, that would be crazy.
But yeah, that'd be nuts. That's a pretty good idea though. I think there's definitely a lot more that can be filled in on that, but I think it's a good start.
Like, yeah, like I don't know, like if anybody's out there listening, like we would love to hear from you, and like if you guys have any ideas, like feel free to hit us up on Facebook, Storytime Pitches, and let us know. Like, I mean, with the last person that messaged in, like, that was a lot of fun just hearing everybody's ideas, and like, that's what this podcast is about.
Oh heck yeah, I'd love to go through like a whole list of
Heck
stuff.
yeah. So all right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Storytime Pitches.
Yeah, and there's more where this came from, so we're glad you guys tuned in and made it through the whole episode.
Definitely. All right, well, have a good night. We'll see you next time.
All right, this is Storytime Pitches.